No, I got you though. It makes sense. Yo, good afternoon, early evening, everybody. Welcome to the Stochastic.com MLB Deeper Dive presented by Prize Picks. I'm Dave Loughran at Lafayette_D on Twitter, joined by Adam Scherer. Ship my money, DFS. What's good, brother? How you feeling?
Pretty good. This slate is interesting.
Hot as daggone hell outside today again, man.
Yeah, I went out this morning to get coffee. It wasn't too bad, but I think I'm also going to some like concert out on the waterfront after lock, so it'll probably be humid and miserable.
The only thing is, I feel bad for my dog. Like I'm not walking my dog in 91 degrees.
Right.
You know,
Does your dog like being out in the heat?
No, she's 7. She in the winter will walk for 2-3 miles at a time, no problem. When it's like the solid like 45 and sunny, or even colder than that, where I hate it, but she loves it. And then it starts warming up a little bit, and I prefer it a little more. She hates the heat though. She absolutely hates it. Much rather be in the cold. But we got 7 games to talk about. Happy to have you guys with us. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way. And remember, for all of our content that has shelf life, like the strategy show, the contenders, and all of that stuff, everything on the betting side, we got podcasts. Come check out our podcast, subscribe, rate them, review them. That stuff goes a long way for us. But more than anything, take a single second, atone for your sins here on the Deeper Dive, and hit that thumbs up. All right. So you mentioned interesting slate. Yeah, I mean, hell, Tanner Bibby getting 43% ownership right now. I know there's some weather concerns there. I looked, it doesn't look too bad, like from what it might have been earlier in the day. A few other pitchers pulling a lot of ownership, but it has been very popular to target Kansas City recently when it comes to opposing pitchers. And the funny thing is, the past few days, they've been like 40-50% owned, and they've just smashed.
Yeah, I mean, 50 DraftKings points from Lopez last night, just ridiculous.
Well, Kenta Maeda too, like not 50, but him at 7,000
yeah.
had a huge game the day before that.
Yeah, he did. And Bybee's not as good as like Pablo Lopez yesterday, but it's the same kind of play. What?
Is it Bybee?
Yeah. Huh. I found that out like 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Pronouncing it Bibby ever since he came into the league.
I mean, that's what it says.
So once again, it goes back to me and my whole assumption that can we just say things the way that they look?
Right, exactly.
Anyway, go ahead with Tanner Bybee.
So it's comparable to the Lopez play yesterday in that from a combination of salary, matchup, and ability, he is clearly the best option. He's getting 44% ownership. It's a little bit different in that he's not as good as Pablo Lopez. He is still good, but 4.27 xFIP, 24.4% strikeout percentage compared to like Lopez yesterday with a 29% K percentage, sub 4 xFIP. Bybee is a rookie. There is, just still a little bit more uncertainty about him as well. As a result, you have a 3.5 to 3.6 implied run total for KC instead of like 2.8 to 2.9. But still clearly the top pitching option today, getting a ton of ownership. He's first in top 2 pitcher percentage at 28%. He's got a 16.5% chance of being a top 2 value on DraftKings. He looks really, really good.
I was pulling it up, making I went to Baseball Reference and I was like, for sure they have this, but they don't. They don't. Odd. Thought they would. But besides the point, let's get into the slate. We got 7 games to touch on. We'll turn this one over to live before lock after this. Jordan, who do we got? We got Greg and Neil today. Greg and Eric. Greg and Eric for live before lock. They'll take you up till first pitch today for a 7-gamer. Let's dive into this one, man. First up, Kyle Bradish and Luis Severino. There's only one left-hander, I think, on the mound across all 7 games today. 2 righties here. And Baltimore minus 135, 8.5 run total. Favorable pitch or hitters park. And also, as we've talked about, pretty warm temperatures in the Northeast right now. It's going to be like 83 degrees at first pitch at Yankee Stadium. So that makes things interesting. What do you want to do with pitching in this one? Start on either side that you want.
Wait, I thought we were on the Cleveland game.
Oh, no, I was just throwing that out there as him being the highest owned guy. Get your thoughts on it. I was just setting the table.
Gotcha. Okay, well, it confused the hell out of me.
I do that all the time, though. Whenever it's like the highest owned pitcher or the highest owned stack, I'll set it up a little bit. I know it's like the first time you and I have done shows together, so I get it.
yeah, brand new pairing here. Well, I was confused why we were just skipping the Orioles and Yankees, but I was like, whatever. No, for the Orioles and Yankees, though, it's a really interesting game. Talked about it a bit in my article today. It doesn't necessarily have the best plays, but it's just got a lot of things that look pretty good. Kyle Bradish should be the most popular play from this game. He's only $7,200. He's in the middle of a good season, striking out 23% of hitters, 3.83 xFIP, only walking 6.5% of hitters. You're getting a Yankees lineup that not only doesn't have Aaron Judge, it also doesn't have Giancarlo Stanton. So you are lacking a lot of the power that they typically have. Bradish has run pretty good from a power allowed standpoint to right-handed bats in particular, or really in general this year. 193 expected ISO to righties, only a 135 actual, 160 expected ISO to lefties, 129 actual. The right-handed power is what really stands out because his home park does kill right-handed power, whereas Yankee Stadium is good for it. So you could certainly see some of that regression hit today, but he's still only $7,200 facing this relatively weak lineup, only a 4 to 4.1 implied run total. So Bradish looks like a very good value option. There are some pivots you can get to save ownership if you need to in tournaments, but Bradish looks good. He's projected for the second most ownership behind Bibee, and I don't really have any problem with that. On the other side for Severino, he's been terrible this year. He's made 8 starts. He's thrown 40 innings, and he has been just absolute garbage at everything. 18% strikeout percentage.
The power is a real problem.
18% strikeout percentage, 2.25 home runs per 9, 5.29 xFIP. But it is just 40 innings. It is 8 starts. He has had some tough matchups in there. Even if he's not what he was a few years ago, which is a reasonable thing to assume, most projection models are still expecting 22 to 23% strikeout percentage over the rest of the season compared to the 18% so far. It's a really scary matchup for him. You have the Orioles running 7 straight lefties out, 1 through 7, Henderson, Rutschman, Santander, O'Hearn, Mullins, Hicks, and Cowser. And then you have Westberg and Urias hitting 8-9. It's not like either of those guys are bad hitters either. And Severino's allowed a 401 expected WOBA to lefties, 231 to righties. He hasn't been very good against, 231 expected ISO to lefties, 232 to righties. He hasn't been very good against righties either. But it's a really tough spot for him. But at the same time, looking at the top pitchers tool, we have him with a 17% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher at 20% ownership. Bradish is at 20%, 31% ownership. Severino's ownership has come up a little bit since earlier today. But when I did my Sims video, Severino was showing up a ton as a strong option in tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, I should correct this. Actually, hold on, we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, with Severino, man, I don't understand he had a solid start 2 times out, right? Or 2 games ago. By the way, 6 games, right? No Toronto and White Sox.
Yeah.
So 6 games, not 7. Originally it was 7 games when I put this together, but 6 games. Yes, my apologies. Severino came out strong start against Texas. That's a tough matchup. And you mentioned he had some tough draws to start the year. And then very next start just gets absolutely pummeled. He hasn't been able to work deep into games. Let's talk a little bit about the stacks on both sides of this one. So you already went through that Orioles lineup. Right now, though, 10% top stack probability. That sits at 5th today. So there are a lot of teams that are up there. We have 6 teams that are all looking pretty good in the top stacks tool, but on an ownership perspective, they're right in the middle of the pack. I mean, aggregate ownership on this stack is sub 8% right now.
Yeah, projected to go a little bit under owned, 8.5% chance of being the top stack, 7.5% aggregate ownership. I wasn't getting to a lot of them earlier because I was getting so much Severino, but it's not like I prefer Severino. I would much rather be getting the Orioles. I would love to go into the slate with being heavy on the Orioles, because not only do they have left-handed power in Yankee Stadium against a pitcher that has been struggling, but they're not really expensive either. Henderson, Rutschman, Santander, and Mullins are expensive, but O'Hearn's batting cleanup at 3,700. Hicks is 2,700. Cowser is 2K flat still somehow, batting 7th. I mean, as a stack, you can certainly offset some of that salary at the top. And it's not like you have a ton of expensive pitching to pay up for today anyway. So I do like the Orioles as a stack. One negative is that the Yankees do have a good bullpen behind Severino. So you're certainly hoping that they get to Severino early, make this a lopsided game, and you don't get the best relievers coming in after him. Because if he does give you 5-6 quality innings, you're probably not doing much from that point on. As far as the Yankees go, Bradish has given up more expected power this year than actual power, as I mentioned. And this is a park that is good for power. The problem is just, where are you getting it really in this Yankees lineup? I do like Volpe leading off. He's 3,400. Nice lineup bump for him. He's been hitting better recently as well. Torres, Rizzo, Bader are all fine. Donaldson's shown some signs of life. McKinney's 2K flat, hitting sixth. They're cheap and they're in Yankee Stadium, so there is upside. But again, this is a pretty weak lineup when you just look at who's in it.
It's funny too, looking at Severino, like the swinging strike rate is down, but everything else looks pretty much. Everything else looks actually whiffs per swing. Here you go. Whiffs per swing on his slider is down 13% from last season. So,
yeah, he's also throwing his slider less so far. He's throwing his changeup more. But also, and I mentioned it, and so did you, just to like look at those starts that he's had so far. The Reds in Cincy give up 1 run there, and that was before the Reds were good. San Diego, Dodgers, White Sox, who have not been good this year, Mets, Red Sox, Rangers, Cardinals. Not only are those mostly good offenses, they're also almost all difficult to strike out.
Any interest in Yankee bats today against Bradish? They're getting right now, just pulling up the top stacks tool to look at this. 4% top stack probability. Hell, they're down there with KC and Pittsburgh. Ownership around 5.5%. Like essentially no leverage at all in a stack like this. Towards the bottom, a stack score. What do you do with the Yankees today against Bradish? Because it is still a good park in warm weather.
Yeah, it's a good park, warm weather, solid opposing pitcher. But I think the value component is the most interesting here. I wouldn't be surprised if I get some, a good amount of like 2-man and 3-man Yankee stacks where, you're getting Volpe, Torres, Rizzo, or Volpe, McKinney, or some, stuff like that, where you can get some cheap home runs here, even if it's not a full stack.
All right. So let's talk about Kansas City and Cleveland. You've got Kansas City +1 here. Now we're on the Kansas City game, Adam. I got you. Yeah. Kansas City +185 at Cleveland, 9-run total. As it stands right now, Kansas City has a 4-run implied total. How worried, first of all, are you about weather in this one? I was looking at it. It looks like most of it's cleared up by the time first pitch happens.
Yeah, it looks better now than it did this morning. If the slate started right now, I wouldn't worry about it at all.
Yeah, unless you get one of those pop-up storms that delay. I don't know. It doesn't look like anything sustained. I'm no meteorologist, but it doesn't look like something you should be super worried about.
Yeah, I mean, it can't go worse than the early slate did when I lost 65% Mackenzie Gore after 17 pitches.
Yeah, that's not ideal at all. But Tanner Bybee, 42.5%. KC with a 4-run implied total. Cleveland on the other side, 5.5-run total. That's currently the 3rd highest implied total on the slate, behind only Texas and Arizona, facing Carlos Carrasco. But we'll start with pitching. We already spent a lot of time on Bybee. I don't think we need to dive much deeper into that. But as it stands, looking at him across all of the other pitchers, if we were to just kind of zoom out on this slate, you have Bradish, you have George Kirby, you have a few other guys that are pulling 20+%. Is Bybee the clear, far and away top option, given his, like, looking at that ownership, is he your clear top option?
Yeah, he's the best combination of everything. I think Bradish would be second, but Bradish is pitching in Yankee Stadium against not the Yankees, like not the typical scary lineup you think of, but still a lineup that has enough power in that park compared to the Royals' god-awful offense in Cleveland. Their active roster has the 2nd lowest WRC plus in baseball. They have a 25% strikeout percentage. It's just a good matchup for Bybee. He's good, or at least good enough. So, yeah, like I was saying at the top, it's not the same level of confidence that you had in Pablo Lopez yesterday, but it's similar in that most of the pitching on this slate is either just bad or in tough matchups. And then you just get Bybee where it's like, hey, this is one of the most talented pitchers on the slate. And oh, by the way, he's facing Kansas City.
Jordan Lyles, that's another story, man. 233 X ISO against lefties, 220 against righties, 16% K rate. Guys inducing swinging strikes, sub 10% from both sides of the plate, almost 2 home runs per 9. You could kind of go on forever. 5.47 xFIP about this guy and how things have not gone according to plan, or you could argue according to plan for Jordan Lyles this season. Yeah, for Jordan Lyles this season. He's getting no ownership whatsoever. it's real tough to make that argument for him today, especially because Cleveland doesn't strike out against righties. The only out here is like you just luck into some soft contact, easy balls in play, and you somehow make it through 6 or 7 innings with like 3 strikeouts.
Yeah, it's a really tough sell on this slate because 1, he sucks, like you said. 2, Cleveland doesn't strike out, like you said. But 3, it's not like this is a slate where you have a bunch of expensive bats that you want to get to, and you have, like a 12K Strider, and it would be like, oh, well, let's just pair him with Lyles and hope that somehow he doesn't get lit up. The pitching on the slate, I mean, if you just play the 2 most popular pitchers, if you play Bibee and Bradish, you're spending like 16K and can pretty much do whatever you want with bats. You could go cheaper if you need to, like Severino, Bradish, or something. So it's just not a slate where I think there's really any need to get to Lyles
at all. Now, the Cleveland bats, on the other hand, that looks a little bit different here. In the top stack tool, you've got them with 11.3% top stack probability, 3rd highest, essentially tied with Arizona, behind only Texas, and they're far and away ahead of everybody. But 11.9% ownership on Cleveland. The stack score, though, has them extraordinarily high, and I have to assume, Adam, one of those reasons is because their value score pops off the page.
Yeah, they look really good. They have one of the best matchups. They are cheap. They have a 5.5 implied run total, which I believe is now the highest on the slate. Yeah, edging out Arizona and the Dodgers and Texas. We've seen them start to hit a bit better recently. They started the year out as the worst offense in baseball against right-handed pitching. That was never going to continue. They're not the best lineup, but they're certainly better than that. You get Josh Naylor back today after he missed yesterday's game. On the one hand, that does make it kind of annoying on DraftKings because your 4-hitter and your 6-hitter play the same position, but it does give you another good bat that can do damage. You can get to either one of them. Naylor is projected for 14% ownership. Bell's projected for about 10. The only negative here is that not only is Cleveland getting ownership, but it's not one of those situations where Jose Ramirez is really popular and nobody else is. The stack itself is popular. You have 5 hitters: Ramirez, Jimenez, Naylor, Rosario, and Kwan, all projected for between 10 and 20% ownership. If you round up, Bo Naylor and Josh Bell also at 10%. So really 7 hitters between 10 and 20% owned. And then you get Will Brennan and Miles Straw as lower owned guys. So it is a team where if you're going to them as a full stack, you will want to be looking to be contrarian elsewhere. Maybe that's using Severino instead of Bradish. Maybe it's using like George Kirby instead of Urias, so we haven't talked about that yet. Maybe it's just using like a low-owned secondary stack like the Yankees or something like that. But you do want to be aware of their ownership, but it's still not problematic in the sense that they're not really going over-owned. Their stack score is 11.5. Aggregate ownership is 12.5%. Top value percentage is 12%. Top stack percentage is 11%. It's not like they're getting, a really high amount of ownership.
Do you think, and you actually mentioned this, I think yesterday when we were talking about Cleveland, that this is one of those teams where they probably should be better than they've been just offensively, even marginally. This team has a 122 ISO on the active roster versus righties this year. That's the lowest in the entire league.
Yeah, and I mean, that's partly they started out really slowly. Partly they don't have a lot of power. Steven Kwan has no power. Rosario has a little bit sometimes. Ramirez, Naylor do. Jimenez historically does, but he's towards the top of the leaderboard in soft contact percentage this year. Josh Bell does. Brennan has a little bit. Straw doesn't have shit. It's even when they're producing offensively, this isn't a team that you expect to hit a ton of home runs. It's more so they have a couple home run hitters in the middle.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, what's Ramirez? What are his power numbers this year?
Against right-handed pitching this year, 210 ISO.
Yeah.
400
right.
But looking at the rest of these guys this season, sub 100 for Kwan against right-handed pitching, sub 100 ISO against right-handed pitching for Rosario. Josh Naylor is at 172. Jimenez is at 126. Bell is at 128, which that's a surprising one. Brennan's at 142. Straw's sub 100. The other Naylor, only 43 plate appearances, but sub 100. That is the knock on this team, is that outside of a couple of them, they do not hit home runs.
Dude, I mean, if you're 5-man stacking, you're just hoping for some magic to happen at that point.
Right. But I mean, some of these guys, you do expect more power going forward.
That's what I was asking you. Yeah, that's kind of what I was asking.
From a 5-man stack perspective, Ramirez has power. Josh Naylor has power, but like it's likely Jimenez hits for more power going forward. He's not going to be a great home run hitter, but he's got more power than he's shown. Josh Bell certainly has more power than he's shown. So it's never going to be a high home run team, but it should be better than it has been.
Any thoughts on, well, you know what, this probably does warrant some discussion at least. Kansas City bats today, just given how popular Bybee is at almost 43% ownership on DraftKings, and Kansas City bats also having one of the highest value scores in our top stack tool. Doesn't mean they're a great stack. It just means from a value perspective, they offer some of that at a discounted price point. Do you see there being some leverage there potentially against Cleveland?
Yes and no. I wouldn't really recommend playing too much Kansas City. I ran my stuff earlier and I was 2x the field on them, and that's just kind of how it goes. Josh was joking earlier that I'm going to find out in like a year that I actually have hard-coded Kansas City projections to just like multiply by 1.5 or something.
Because you get so much of them.
Yeah. So once again, at least as of earlier, I'm getting there. I don't really recommend that you get there. If you are, like, the case would be the value component, like you said, and you are facing a rookie pitcher who's pulling 50% ownership, who is good, but not great. You have a cheap Garcia leading off. Witt is always one of the highest upside shortstop options. Same goes for Perez at catcher. Nick Prado's got power, $3,100 first baseman. Melendez is only $2,800. Everything else kind of drops off a cliff, but the value component and lack of ownership, I guess, is the main argument, but it's still a low probability spot.
What about his one-off type spots here? Would you just maybe get to some of the good ones, or does that kind of defeat the purpose of...
No, I think that's fine. Bobby Witt projected for 10% ownership. No problems whatsoever with that. Same goes for Perez, 8%, Garcia at 7%. Everybody else is 3% or lower, but especially those three, Witt, Perez, and Garcia, I have no issues whatsoever.
Josh Gillum said, Josh needs to come on and pronounce Bybee's name, then leave.
No, he doesn't.
Why?
He has been going with Bibby, which just gets stuck in my head. And
dude, I want to go back to Bibby so badly. I mean, you messed me up at the beginning of this show. That's why. So he's sticking with Bibby?
No, Bibby.
What?
Not
oh,
Bibby.
Like he emphasizes the end of it?
Yes.
Like the second syllable?
Yes.
Bibby?
Bibby.
Not even Bibby.
Bibby.
And you don't like it?
No, it just gets stuck in my head.
Bibby. Anything else for this game?
No.
Sam said, don't let him rattle you. It's Bobby. Yeah, Adam has told me that now. Texas and Boston. All right, let's go. Texas minus 140 here. 10-run total in Boston. Right now, the Rangers have a 17% top stack probability, highest on our tool, on the top stack tool by far. By the way, you guys know 50% off all of our tools across the board. Use the link in the description or in chat. You want to get access to ownership, top stack, top pitchers, MLB lineup generator, PGA lineup generator. If you just go Stochastic Plus Platinum, you want to take 50% off everything, whether it's a week of one sport or a month or every sport for a week or month. You're getting the lineup generators included in that. Just so you guys know, I've had a lot of questions on Twitter about that. If you just want to get the lineup generator, it's $4.48 for your first week. So pick and choose however you want to play it. But if you've been on the fence and wondering whether or not it's worthwhile, you're getting 50% off everything, no matter what you decide to get for the first week or first month. So make sure to do so if you've been thinking about it. You want to follow along and be able to utilize these tools every day. But yeah, Texas 17% in the top stack tool, 16% ownership, 10 tops or stack score of 10. Before we get to pitching, I do want to ask you just about these Rangers bats against Crawford. Are you getting to as much of them as the field right now?
I wasn't earlier. I will not be upset at all if that changes. I think the reason I wasn't getting there was probably a pricing thing and an ownership thing. They are first in top stack percentage at 17% by a pretty wide margin. Even considering they're expensive, they are still second in stack score. They're first in ownership. I'll be happy if I get more of them than I was earlier, but I wasn't getting that much earlier. I will say Crawford's not a bad pitcher, but this is a good hitter's park with good hitting weather today, and it is one of the best offenses in baseball in the Rangers. So I agree they should be really popular. 5.3 implied run total is second to the Guardians. hopefully I get there more than I was earlier.
Yeah, because right now Cutter Crawford pulling very little ownership, around 5%. We do have him as a positive leverage play
Yeah.
in the top stack tool, but
I think he's kind of just one of those, if you're playing 150 lineups or something and he lands in lineups here and there, just
yeah,
like if you're playing, let's say you're playing Cleveland, they're popular hitters. And then I don't know, you're mixing in who else is pop, like you're mixing in Arizona against Carrasco or something, then Crawford makes some sense. In that case, you know, the Rangers are popular. You're playing other high upside teams, so you get the negative correlation there by going to Crawford. You offset some ownership. He makes sense in lineups like that because he's not a total garbage pitcher, but I'm certainly not going out of my way to get to him against one of the best offenses in baseball in Fenway Park.
yeah, he's not like he's probably priced where he should be. It's not one of these guys where we've gone, well, he's 4K or he's 5K. You gotta have to consider him. 23.5% K rate, 23.7. Not bad. 4.06 xFIP. Like you mentioned, he's not total garbage, but he's also going up against a really good offense with a 10-run total in the game and them sitting at like, what is it? What is their total right now? 5.5?
5.3.
5.3.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard to make that argument for sure.
On the other interesting thing as far as the Rangers go, and this isn't to say you can't take the good left-handed bats here, Seager, Lowe, Heim, but Crawford has a strikeout percentage this year of 16.8% against right-handed hitters, 30.3 against lefties, 250 expected WOBA to lefties, 325 to righties. Expected ISO to righties is 183 compared to 171. So again, you know, you can play these very good lefties, but don't shy away from Semien, Garcia, Young, Duran.
All right. So on the other side, Eovaldi, $10,000 on DraftKings against Boston. Now, their implied total right now still sits at 4.9. So it's not like, you know, it's not like they have a particularly low total, unless that, what do you have it at? We have it at 4.9 in the top stack tool in the top
4.7.
4.7. Yeah, I haven't refreshed in a minute. So
4.4.
4.4.
I just refreshed.
Oh, okay. There you go. So 4.4. But still, you know, going up against, if you're a 10K pitcher, your opponent's got a 4.4 run implied total. That's not nothing.
Yeah.
His price has come down over the last several starts. I mean, this guy was sitting north of 11K, pretty prohibitive price point. But now you've got him at 10K against Boston. He's pulling ownership around 12% right now. Is there any thought process here, given that price point and low ownership and tough matchup, that you'd want to get there, or are we staying? By the way, I looked at over the last 2 weeks, and I usually don't look at these stats. Boston has the highest strikeout rate in the league.
They're not running a great lineup out there today either. The case for Eovaldi would be, and I'm actually interested to see where this ends up for me. When I did my Sims video earlier, I was getting a ton of George Kirby at $9,600. But when I did that video, we had Kirby projected for like 15-ish% ownership and Urias at like 30% and Eovaldi at 10 to 15%. Now we have Eovaldi at 13%, Kirby and Urias both at like 24, 25%. So the Kirby ownership has done what I thought it should and has climbed to basically match Urias. So I could see a case, and this is the argument for Eovaldi, where you look at the three pitchers in this price range, Urias, Kirby, and Eovaldi. Urias has the best matchup against the Pirates. He's also very likely to be limited today. He went 3 innings, 66 pitches last time out. Now, he did get hit hard, so I don't know if 66 pitches was like the official limit or not, but it's hard to think that Urias has the ability to go as deep into this game as Kirby and Eovaldi can. Kirby's got a matchup against Houston where it's a tough strikeout matchup, but they don't have Alvarez. They don't have Altuve. So he projects pretty well. And then you have Eovaldi with the tough matchup against Boston in Fenway Park. It's the least appealing spot of those three, but Eovaldi is similar to Kirby in that he can go deep into games. He frequently goes deep into games, and he's just getting like half the ownership of those two guys. So I do think you can make that argument for him where there are significant flaws with Urias and Kirby as well. And also Eovaldi, but like he's just getting half the ownership. So in tournaments, I think you can make that case. I wasn't getting there earlier, but again, ownership has changed, so maybe I will now.
How about Boston bats? You mentioned it's not a great lineup they're running out there in the top stack tool too. They're only getting, they're 7.9%, 7% top stack probability. Any thoughts on these Boston bats?
So they were my highest owned stack in the Sims video. I expect that to come down a bit. I didn't love that they were anyway because Eovaldi is so good. But the idea in getting to the Red Sox is that it is a good hitter's park. They do have a lot of power hitters, and the lineup that you can build around them is going to look really, really good. You're going to be able to get good one-offs. You're going to be able to get good pitching. But the big difference in this lineup is that Jarren Duran's not in the game. He's not in the starting lineup. He was $3,200, I think, projected to lead off. So he was projected to be one of the most popular players on the slate, one of the best point per dollar values. He looked really, really good, and he helped make this a cheap stack. He's not in the lineup now. So suddenly your 1 through 5 are all at least $4,000 on DraftKings. Now, that's not to say that they're necessarily overpriced. Like $4,900 on Devers, $4,700 on Yoshida. Those are two of the cheaper price tags you're going to see on those guys still. But as a stack, the top of the order just isn't as cheap as it would have been with the projected lineups we were using earlier. You do get some value once you go down in the order. Tristan Casas is only $2,400. Connor Wong was showing up a bunch as a punt at $2,500, a punt catcher. David Hamilton is free at shortstop. Kike is $2,600. There is still value. It's just all pushed toward the bottom of the order now, whereas earlier it was a little bit more appealing. So it's still a high upside offense, but they're more expensive than they were, and they do have a tough matchup against Eovaldi. And also, we mentioned Boston's implied run total dropping. The Rangers are also down 0.3 of a run to like 5.1.
Okay, so the game total came down, and on both sides. You want to talk Seattle, Houston here?
Giants Gaming said isn't Duran in hitting 5th? No, Adam Duvall's hitting 5th.
Don't worry, Josh came in and Josh swooped in and took care of that one. Josh just patrolling, always on patrol. George Kirby. I love this guy, man. I these type of pitchers fascinate me because it's not like he's blowing stuff by you with a 35% K rate or anything like that. 21% K rate, Adam, but he's just always pitching deep into games. I mean, sure, he's had a few spots on the year where he's just got tuned up, as is going to happen across 30 plus starts for any pitchers. But when things are going even remotely well for him, he's giving you 6 innings minimum, 7, 8 innings at times. And now you've got him going up against this Houston team. So the Houston Astros right now have an implied total. You updated. What do we have the implied total at? I'm refreshing right now. It was in the 3s last I looked.
4.
Is it at 4 now? Okay.
Or, I mean, just shy of 4. I'm rounding up.
But it's still, so one of the lowest on the slate. The only one lower is Pitt at 3.9. We have him at 4. I mean, he's just a legitimately good pitcher. And the question now becomes, at this price point against Houston with a sub 4 implied total, what do you want to do with that? Especially knowing that he has a 279 xWOBA against right-handed bats. 279.
Yeah, he's really good. And this lineup is nowhere near as dangerous as it normally is. I sort of alluded to it earlier, but Alvarez has been out for a while. Altuve is on the injured list now as well. Not to say, Dubon and Abreu and Diaz are bad, but it's a weaker lineup than usual. Bregman and Tucker, I think, are the only 2 hitters that you're truly scared of in this lineup. There are some strikeouts in there too. Not so much at the top of the order. Against right-handed pitching this year, 13% K percentage for Dubon, 14.5% for Bregman, 15.5% for Tucker, 17.5% for Diaz. That's 4 of your top 5 hitters. But other than that, Maldonado 30%, Pena 26%, Abreu 25%, McCormick 25%, Jolks 24.5%. There are actually strikeouts in this lineup once you get through that top part of the order. And Kirby is just very good. Like you said, very efficient, can work deep into games. He's walked 2.2% of hitters this year. 19.2 K minus BB percentage is, I believe, better than any pitcher on this slate. He's good. 3.64 xFIP. Certainly happy to get there. His ownership has come up. Like I said, he was showing up a ton for me in my Sims video. I said on the show this morning, I didn't understand why Julio Urias was getting so much more ownership than Kirby, given the difference in how deep you can expect them to go into games. So that has leveled out, but he still looks like a very good play.
Yeah, and our buddy SMP 1993 in chat astutely pointing out that kind of is the best that you could ask for as far as a lineup goes for Kirby. 8 right-handed bats out there is pretty significant, because you mentioned the K minus BB, 23.3% K minus BB rate versus righties this year, 25% strikeout rate against same-handed bats as well, Adam. So, I mean, those are all numbers when you're facing 8 guys from the same side of the plate. That certainly makes a difference. 0.7 home runs per 9, Those are all really good numbers against same-handed hitters.
Yeah, it's a really good point as well. 24.5% K percentage compared to 18%, but also the 199 expected ISO to lefties compared to 124 to righties. So again, like it's still not an easy matchup, but if you are going to draw up the best version of a George Kirby versus Houston matchup, it is what you're getting today.
Absolutely. On the other side of this one, so we've got Ronel Blanco going for Houston now. Do you have interest here against the Seattle Mariners, who we know are prone to striking out at times? Is this a spot like how deep do you think we get him here? And at 18% ownership, is this pretty? It feels like that's pretty much in line with where it should be. 18.7% top two probability, 18% ownership.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much where it should be. In terms of how deep into the game he can go, you got 5 innings last time out through 88 pitches. June 24th, he went 6 innings, 99 pitches. I think you're expecting 90 to 100 pitches here, so length isn't a concern. Regular it is a good strikeout matchup, like you said. The Mariners do have power, though. It's not like this is a safe lineup to face. He's been fine this year. I think at that price tag, I think the ownership makes sense. Overall, as a starter, he struck out 22% of hitters, but he does have a 5.34 xFIP. He has allowed 2.25 home runs per 9 innings. Lefties have a 187 expected ISO. Righties are at 239. Julio Rodriguez looks real good with those Crawford boxes in left field. Keep in mind, Houston with the roof closed isn't the best park for hitting, but Seattle is the worst park. So it's certainly nice for these guys to take aim at the short porch and left. Rodriguez, France, Hernandez, Suarez, all from the right side. Obviously, Kelenic and Raleigh can do damage as well. Ford's a cheap source of power. So the Mariners do look pretty good. I was getting to them earlier. They are projected to be the third highest owned offense at 11.5%, 8.5% chance of being the top stack, but also an 11% chance of being the top value. So they just look pretty good. But also, if you're not playing the Mariners, Blanco is certainly another viable, little bit lower owned pivot to Kyle Bradish.
Do you have any interest whatsoever in any of these Houston bats? Because, another thing too, another thing too is while Kirby is like a great pitcher, he's also somebody that is not giving up an exorbitant amount of fly balls either. So it's just when he gets tuned up, it doesn't often come by way of a ton of home runs. He's allowed multiple home runs in one game all season. That was when he allowed 4, oddly enough, against the Pittsburgh Pirates back in May.
Yeah, it's really tough to make a strong case for Houston. We have them dead last in top stack percentage. Kyle Tucker individually looks pretty good because of those struggles that you've had to left-handed hitters specifically for Kirby. But other than that, it's basically, if you're playing Houston, it is just one of those, hey, it's a large field tournament. You need to get lucky somewhere to win. Let's take a shot on Houston. But they're pretty far down the list for me. In the lineups I ran earlier, which again isn't indicative of necessarily what I'm going to play because lineups have come out and it's different, but I didn't have a single 5-man Houston stack.
Okay. 2 games to go here. Let's make it happen. We've got the New York Mets. We've got Arizona. Talked about it earlier as far as top stack score goes, top stack probability. Arizona clearly up there against a version of Carlos Carrasco that has since become a shell of himself since returning. Carrasco, Ryan Nelson on the mound, Mets plus 120 on the money line away from home. I mean, feel free to start this one wherever you want, but from a pitching perspective, we've already talked about a lot of guys that are pretty popular today. We haven't even gotten to Urias yet, but Tanner Bybee, George Kirby, Bradish, Severino, even 21%. Blanco's pulling 18%. These guys are at the bottom of everything today in this game.
Yeah, it's just not a slate, like I said, with Lyles, where I think it's likely that you need to get to those guys. Carrasco's kind of shown signs of life recently, sort of. 6 strikeouts against the Giants, 5 against the Phillies, his last 2 starts, but he's been absolutely awful overall this season. He probably gets a little bit better, as time goes on, but overall, a 16% strikeout percentage, 5.2 xFIP, and a tough matchup here against Arizona, 5.3 implied run total. Can't really make a case for Carrasco and can't really make one for Nelson either. He's been solid enough against right-handed bats this year. 19% strikeout percentage, but only a 297 expected WOBA. Lefties, though, have lit him up. 384 expected WOBA, 236 expected ISO, only a 13.5% strikeout percentage. We'll probably get a pretty balanced lineup from the Mets, but they do have quality lefties with Nimmo, Lindor, McNeil in particular. You'll probably also have Vogelbach and Beatty in there towards the bottom, but their righties are also good. Nelson's been fine against them, but that doesn't mean he's going to have success against Peter Alonso in particular. Tommy Pham's been hitting better recently. Marte has home run and stolen base upside. Alvarez is one of the better hitting catchers. So I don't have interest in the pitching here.
Okay. Gotta say, man, nobody can take a joke. And Jordan, did you see my 18 Slack messages, by the way? Or were you too busy in chat talking to Sean V? Be honest.
So you were too busy in chat talking to Sean V.
100%. I know. Jordan had a phenomenal zinger. I'll give him that for sure. But nobody takes a joke and just like smoothly keeps going along better than Sean V. I got to tell you,
that's why we tolerate him.
I know.
As opposed to some other people.
Right. But I'm saying like Sean V is, despite what many may say, I think a pretty well-balanced individual. Yeah. Well, he said that he ran into Clayton Kershaw at the park today by his house, which is actually more believable than the guy saying that, guy was on the bloomer listening to our show and they both had their windows up and he heard him and was like, yo, which didn't happen. But he said he was at the park by his house with his kids and his wife, which if that's true, that's awesome that you said hi. But Jordan said, Sean didn't know you were allowed near playgrounds.
I saw him say that. I hadn't seen what led to that.
Which is also funny, but shout out to Sean V, man. I like Sean V. How about this? ATL Bird fan, Adam, hit us with a $50 super chat right now. Big thanks to Josh, Adam, Laffy, Neil, Greg, and Eric for your continued work in helping me improve my lineup building process. Took down the $3 Mega Mini Max last night. What was first place on that?
I'm not sure.
Mega Mini Max, I would assume was. You let us know. Let us know in chat. Was it 50? Was it 30, 25?
I think it was probably like 10.
Okay. Whenever I hear Mega Mini Max, I assume that, and it's a $3, I assume they go heavy.
They've been running it out most slates now. I don't know if they didn't run it tonight or if I probably just missed it. But they've started running it out most nights. $15. $3 150 max.
15.
Okay, nice.
That's awesome though, dude. That is awesome. Congratulations. He said, helped me with the lineup. Took down the $3 Mega Mini Max last night. Thanks to your insight and the lineup generator. Dude, I mean, how many times do we got to tell you, right? Lineup generator. If you're not there and you're like, oh, I don't want to spend $4.48 for the first week. I mean, I certainly can't help you, but we did help ATL Birds fans and thanks, man. That's awesome. $50 super chat. Really good stuff. Congrats. Totally unnecessary, but we appreciate it. And if you want to check out the lineup generator that he's talking about, $4.48 for your first week. Link is in the description. We got you. All right. Let's talk about some bats here because this is where it's certainly going to get interesting. Atlanta, second highest top stack probability on the slate going up against Carrasco and against Ryan Nelson. The Mets are fourth, Adam. So both of these teams towards the top today on a six game slate.
Yes. Still Mets and Diamondbacks, right?
Yeah, we're talking bats here.
Yeah, it looks great for both sides. I mean, we kind of just touched on how mediocre to bad the pitching is. Arizona, 12% chance of being the top stack, 10% ownership. Mets, 10% chance of being the top stack, 10% ownership. Prefer lefties against Nelson, but again, you're not shying away from Alonso in particular, Pham, Marte, Alvarez. Those guys are all solid. On the Arizona side, that is going to be the better matchup. They are expensive. That's the thing that makes Arizona tough is at least at the top, Perdomo's 4K. He's leading off for a team with a 5.3 implied run total. No real problem there. Ketel Marte is back in the lineup, which is nice. He's also $5,900. Carroll $6,200. Walker $5,400. Gurriel $4,800. It's not that the pricing on any of them in particular is that crazy. You could certainly argue that Walker is $500 too expensive, or same for Ketel Marte. You could certainly argue that neither of those guys should be more expensive than, say, Rafael Devers. But it's when you combine them together That's a lot to pay for, a 1 through 5 stack, but you can use the bottom of the order. Emmanuel Rivera is hitting 6th. He's 3K. Fletcher, 2,600. Moreno's got some power as a catcher. He's 2,700. You have Alec Thomas, a former top 100 prospect, hitting 9th at 2,500. So you may not be able to get a lot of those 1 through 5 stacks, but you can still get the, Perdomo, Carroll, Walker, Gurriel, Fletcher, or Moreno stack pretty easily and do kind of whatever you want around that. So they do still look like a good team to get to.
Did you see they found cocaine in the White House?
I saw the odds for whose it was.
It's hilarious, right?
Yeah.
That these offshore books have odds on it.
Yeah. Like we're ever going to find out.
No, of course. You know what? Weren't you kind of surprised that the Secret Service would even meant like that it would, I would never have expected this to go public unless there's some type of, and here goes my conspiracy mind, but like some type of insidious type of, there has to be some type of purpose for this. Otherwise, why not just brush it under the rug if there's no motive?
Right. I was thinking that too. And I was going to say, we're not going to find out whose it was unless either it's beneficial to whoever leaked it, or they just say it was somebody's whose it wasn't, and it's beneficial that it goes that way.
Right. I mean, Hunter and a couple of them was like the odds-on favorite.
I saw him at like plus 170, Travis Kelce at plus 800.
Yeah. Well, the best is Hunter opened at like plus 250 or something. So it's so ridiculous that anyway, somebody tweeted me when I had mentioned it. And I'm like, it's crazy that this is actually a thing that you can shop odds on. Like
right.
Bovada had minus 400 to, random person taking a tour. But I heard that it was found in one of the rooms that you can't get access to if you're taking a tour. So who knows?
What if you're taking a tour and you offer the right person a bump?
That's true. Like, okay, if I were to, this is funny to me. If I had to guess, like, decent chance it's Hunter's. But then there's these people out there with videos. This is where you can have some nuance that are like, here's a video, verifiable evidence of Hunter Biden doing a bump up on like the balcony. Like, what are you talking? Why wouldn't he just go into the bathroom where there's not 1,500 cameras? Like, how dumb can people be? He like hides behind Jill and you see him go like this. Why in front of, you're everywhere. Why wouldn't you just walk into a private bathroom?
Sure. But also people are really dumb.
Now, come on, dude, stop it. You really think that
I don't.
He's that dumb?
No, I don't.
I think he's dumb enough to drop it on the floor in the White House.
Right.
I don't think he's dumb enough. I mean, listen, but I don't think he's dumb enough to just do it in front of everybody. I don't know. It's funny.
Yeah, I mean, we also had a president walk outside and look directly into an eclipse. Like, people just kind of do stupid shit.
Yeah, but that's not illegal.
No, it's not illegal, but it's still.
He wasn't under investigation. Probably was actually, but
not for that specific thing.
Yeah, not for looking into the sun. All right, let's get to this last game here. Pittsburgh and the Dodgers. Before we do, though, our sponsor, Prize Pick. We do know right now. This is one thing we can confirm, that if you sign up on Prize Picks using the link that we have in the description or that we have in chat, you're getting a free month of all our tools. Forget about 50% off, right? Forget about any of that stuff. You see that super chat, you're like, damn, the guy just took down 15K. But I don't want to empty the wallet right now on 50% off or this. If you're in a state that has Prize Picks, Indiana just went live as well. All you do is click the link in the description. You sign up. You go over to a site that already has an awesome platform that's blowing up for good reason. Deposit, get $120 value. Free month, Stochastic plus Platinum, all the tools that we have on the site, not including the MLB Sims, that is separate, but everything else for free, $120 value. Look and looking at our Bet Pro tool right now, there are some very solid bets, or I should say props. I'm sorry, over at Prize Picks. A couple of them with some win rates, expected wins well above 50%. Remember, there's no juice on Prize Picks either. So Christopher Sanchez, that's an earlier game, over 4 strikeouts against the Rays. Philly pitching has had their way with them lately. Ronel Blanco, under 5.5 strikeouts, 53% X win there. That's the great thing about Prize Picks is you can exploit some of these when they're not attaching juice to the over or the under. if it's all you need is expected win. It's not, it's not what the expected value is on any of these, what the EV percentage, but simply expected win. You're just building lineups with player props, overs or unders. And if you build a 5-player lineup with any sport you want, they have a shit ton of sports over there. You 10x. And unlike your traditional sports book, where if you only hit 4 of 5 or 3 of 5, where you get no money back, you'd still 2x on 4 of 5. Just ask Josh lately. Josh has been putting his picks out. He's going 4-2 on these 6-pick flex plays, which if you hit 6 of them, you 25x. Every day, dude's going 4-2. Normally, you'd go, if he was doing that anywhere else, like DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, that would be a failure because you're not winning anything unless you're, round robining them. But here, he's still 2xing all of these, which is, or he's still making money back on all of these, which is exactly what you're looking for. So check it out. Get your free month of Stochastic plus Platinum. Check out our tools, many of them that can help you win at Prize Picks to begin with, and get your first match deposit bonus there because they have a first match deposit bonus, 100% up to $100. Link in the description and in chat over there on Prize Picks, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. Let's wrap this one up. We've got Johan Oviedo, Julio Urias. You know what's crazy? The eye, you know how his eyes all like shuttered, right?
No.
Really? Urias?
I know he wears glasses, like sports goggles. I know he wears like sports goggles.
Yeah. So he's had like a benign mass removed a bunch of different times.
I didn't know that.
It's like periorbital or something that's been removed multiple times. And he had a quote. He had a quote that was like, that's just the way, this is a great quote. He's like, that's just the way God works. He gave me a bad left eye and a great left arm, which I mean, is that not a great quote?
Yeah, that's awesome.
What better way to live than that? Like, yeah, I can throw pretty well and
right.
Fuck the eye. But yeah, that's a quote from our friend Julio Urias. Anyway, do you like him today?
Sort of. Good matchup against the Pirates. 3.3 to 3.4 implied run total is the lowest on the slate, a little bit behind or a little bit lower than KC. The issue is that he's $9,400, and in his return from a hamstring injury in his last start, 66 pitches, 3 innings pitched. He gave up 5 earned runs, so it is conceivable that he was going to be allowed to go deeper into the game. But the Dodgers have historically been very cautious with Urias, so I think it's likely that you're probably, even if he pitches well, looking at 85 pitches or so. And it kind of just gets to a point where, considering he's getting like 25% ownership, what is he capable of putting up a game at 9,400 that you have to have? I think the biggest argument for him would probably be that pitching on this slate sucks. And so it's not like it's a crazy idea that George Kirby, like that Urias could go out there for 5 innings, score 15 points, get a win, gets to 19, and that just beats Kirby and Evaldi and these other options. Like, I think that's sort of the case for him, but it's kind of concerning just because he is 25% owned. I hate rostering guys that are popular when I really have no idea how they put up a score that you're looking at and you're just like, oh, I absolutely need that.
Right. That's a good point. Okay. So then on the other side, because we only got a few minutes here before we turn this one over, Oviedo and then Dodger bats, of course. The Dodger bats today with a implied total of 5.2. Oviedo pulling ownership around 7.5%. We do have him, however, with a 14% top 2 probability in the top pitchers tool.
Yeah, I mean, he's just another one of these cheap pitchers that is getting a little bit of ownership because it's a 6-game slate. Pitching's not very good, and if you're playing a bunch of lineups, maybe you mix him in a little. But really, really tough matchup against the Dodgers. 17% strikeout percentage to righties, 21% to lefties. He's been okay at limiting power. 173 expected ISO to lefties, 128 to righties, but the Dodgers are just a totally different animal than most teams that you face. I don't think you need to pay down that often on this slate. In the lineups I had made earlier, which again, this is going to change just based on everything changing between 2 o'clock and now. I didn't get to any of the pitchers in this price range except for like 4% Nelson and 2% Carrasco. Those could easily just fall off or turn into Oviedo. It wouldn't matter. But at least as of the last time I made and simmed lineups, I just wasn't getting to this price range.
Okay. We'll wrap it up with bats here. Dodgers, Pittsburgh. Either of these spots appeal to you today?
Yeah, the Dodgers kind of have to. Oviedo is not terrible at preventing power, but the Dodgers just have so much of it. They have about a 10% chance of being the top stack, only about 8% aggregate ownership because they are so expensive. Their lack of value does cause them to rank second from the bottom, only ahead of Houston in stack score. But my counter argument to that is that, yeah, it might be tough. It's kind of like Arizona. It might be tough to get 1 through 5, where Betts, Freeman, Smith, Muncy, and Martinez, assuming that is 1 through 5, are all at least 5K. But 6 through 9 is not very expensive. In their projected lineup, you're looking at Peralta, Hayward, Outman, and Rojas. Outman being the most expensive of those 4 at 3,700. So just like I was saying with the Diamondbacks, you could very easily go, Betts, Freeman, Smith, Outman, Peralta, and still pretty much be able to do whatever you want. So I don't know that the salary is actually that prohibitive here. On the other side, I think it's very difficult to make a case for the Pirates. Like I said, lowest implied run total on the slate. They do still have some quality hitters, and they are cheap. Henry Davis is cheap. Brian Reynolds is good. McCutchen is good enough. But I think they're a really tough team to get to.
Well, we got 6 up, 6 down. Live before lock coming up next. Appreciate you guys hanging out as always. 130 thumbs up here. We got over 700 people watching. So the last request, simple one at that. And we forget sometimes, busy lives and got a bunch of stuff going up in our heads. We just need sometimes a subtle reminder to hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Take a sec, one second while you're waiting. Hit that thumbs up. Show us some love. At least get us north of 150 here. I think that's doable. We need 9 in order to do that of the 700 people watching with us. But hey, as always, appreciate you guys. You're the best. Have a great rest of the day. Shout out to ATL Birds fan on the big win. And thanks a lot for that $50 super chat, man. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Strategy show live before lock, but don't go anywhere. Greg and Eric coming up next. Peace. Yo, it's that time of week again. Time to induct some of you wonderful people into the Stochastic Hall of Fame here. And also give away a whole bunch of free subscriptions to Stochastic Plus Platinum, $120 value. And all you got to do to get in on this fun, crowning achievement, gather the family around, say, honey, I'm in the Stochastic Hall of Fame. Come watch. They're about to announce my name. Go to stochastic.com/avatar. Download the Stochastic profile picture. Tweet your wins when you win at Stochastic HOF on Twitter and win a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. Get inducted right here. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and boom, you are in. Just like our friend Zach Skaggs, the ever elusive double win. Thank you to the crew and all the tools over at Stochastic. Not getting the free month, but representing Stochastic here. I can appreciate that. 2,250 here in the squeeze and the line drive. Shout out to Zach for a really nice day. And our friend Kenneth Malakar. I don't know what to say. I want to thank all you guys for all the good advice, not to mention all of you guys in chat. Great community of people. Finally, the Hall of Fame, 3rd out of 7,400, $1,000 for a boy who has supported the channel and the site for a long time now. Congrats, Kenneth. We love to see it. And Timmy, first off, Lavi, I'm gonna be up here a lot now, so get it down. The TX is like a CH. So basically, Cha Kiang, listen, dude, I'm going to be doing this a lot as well, and I can assure you I will not get this down anytime soon, but congrats to Timmy. Love to see it. But, man, not a lot to most y'all, but I'm going to say this. I know nothing about golf, but making nice finishes goes to show you how it's getting done. Pay the man. $800 and a free month of Stochastic. Congrats, Timmy. I'm just kidding. Timmy Cha Kiang. And then how about Derby status or Perez status? Second day playing DFS, and I shipped the $1 25K mini max for $2,500 and placed second in the $3 MLB 20K moonshot for $1,000. All thanks to Stochastic and the guys there with the great insight and the MLB lineup generator. $4.48 for your first week. You know it. Link in the description, baby. Keith, I'm gonna need a punch card at this rate. Yeah, he's been here. He's been up a lot lately. Keith, $300 in the 7,500 solo shot. Next up is Matt. Shout out to the team at Stochastic for helping me out last night. 350 win there in the 10K Wednesday MLB pinch hit. And we keep moving forward with David Colasanto. Almost hit a 4-figure payout twice in a week. I'll settle for second place and a $200 ROI thanks again for the advice. Hell yeah, man. Second place out of 7,100 in the mini max. Take that all day long. And Nate Larson, not enough entries to qualify for the free month, but shout out to the lineup generator. 2 of the top spots. I've said it a million times, guys, whether it's high stakes, low stakes, we got you covered. Just like internet points or it's depletes. Not quite enough to retire early, but who needs that when there's the Stochastic Hall of Fame? See this $25 and $8.50 in the nickel $600 prize pool, first out of 14,000. But as long as it's top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and you're not chopping more than 3 ways, you're in. $120 free month. What better way to do it than that in some of these low stakes contests? Shout out to It's the Plates 99 and everybody else. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. You've now been inducted, or welcome back if you've been here before. Remember, download the Stochastic profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at StochasticHOF and get that free month and get inducted every single Monday right here in the Hall of Fame.
It's a really nice shirt you have on, by the way, Jordan. What is up, everybody? It is time for MLB Live Before Lock. Myself and Eric Lindquist breaking down the slate in full Thursday night, which means our guy Neil Orfield is over playing softball. We'll get updates on how poorly he pitched tomorrow. And maybe we'll do a little fun contest on Twitter. How many earned runs do you believe that Neil is going to give up today? I know that I think it was last week at his best game of the season and allowed less than 10 runs for the first time all year. But let's see what he's got this week. I'll put a poll up on Twitter if you guys want to go check that out after.
Neil Severino.
Please. Luis Severino, as bad as he's been this year, would be offended by this. It's more like who's been like egregiously terrible this year? With like no hope of getting better.
God, so many names come to mind. Let the number one guy, Brandon Pfaadt.
I'm going to say like Neil Julio Teheran.
Okay. I mean, Julio Teheran, other than one outing, was lights out until then.
Do you have any confidence that he's going to be decent?
No, absolutely none. None. Zero.
Neil
but
Julio
he's
Teheran.
Literally, you the first name you came up with is a guy with like a less than a 4 expected ERA.
Let's see. Julio Teheran this year.
He's probably higher than that after his last outing, but he literally had a like 2 ERA going into that game.
Yeah. And he's got like a 239 BABIP, but let's see. Who else has just been incredibly terrible? If we go to the wins above replacement leaders for pitcher, who's dead last? And then like double that, and it's Neil Orfield.
I mean, Graham Ashcraft was near the bottom for a hot second there. And then he found a little bit of recovery. Looked okay yesterday. Again, it was one of those things where, you know, it's hard to say that you're going to stay that terrible for that long, especially when he had decent results last season. If I had to guess, near the bottom, somebody who probably qualifies has got to be Patrick Corbin. He's got to be on that list.
So the actual last for this year in wins above replacement is Martin Perez.
Whoa.
How about Neil Jordan Lyles? Jordan Lyles with a 6.68 ERA, 5.6 FIP.
Neil Lyles. Everybody tweet at him, Neil Lyles. You'll have no idea what's going on, and it'll be glorious.
Nah, and he's over there playing softball. But anyway, baseball show to talk about today. If you guys could be so kind, just come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want more information from ourselves via the podcast. We have our podcast channel that you guys can go check out. Stochastic Daily Fantasy. All of our shows get uploaded up there. And also, in the coming months, once football starts, we're going to be doing some podcast exclusive content. So if you guys haven't subscribed to our podcast channel, go do that. And also, while you're there, do us a favor and leave a 5-star review for today. We're sponsored by Prize Picks. And if you guys sign up at Prize Picks for the first time using the link we have below, you are going to get yourself 1 free month of Stochastic plus Platinum. In addition, get a deposit bonus of up to $100. And Eric, did you play on Prize Picks today by chance?
I did.
All right, we'll be talking a little bit more about Prize Picks as we go along. But first, we're going to be talking about today's MLB DFS slate. And did you play the early slate as well?
I played a little bit on the early slate. I mainly just bet the early slate and just smashed again. Cody Bellinger, I bet to hit a home run. Everybody in the Discord is happy. Had Ellie De La Cruz to get 2+ hits. Everybody's happy again. We also hit Michael Lorenzen, only went 60 pitches, took the under 4.5 Ks for him. Cincinnati money line. Only thing we missed was by the hook, the over in that game. It was a glorious morning.
So it's funny. Last I checked, I was in like 9th in the 121 single entry, and my pitchers had combined for 5 fantasy points.
Oh God. It was one of those slates. I looked at it for like 2 seconds and I was like, I'm going to pack for Vegas. I'm going to get some stuff done around the house, go get my hair cut, get all of the other things done in my life rather than like try to figure out who I would actually want to roster with confidence. Cause like, if I could have reversed it where it's like, I get points for negative points, I would have rostered a lot of guys on that slate.
My starting pitching combination was Hogan and Mackenzie Gore. The Gore one, though, was
that you got screwed.
The Gore one, like, what am I supposed to do about that? Especially because Williamson on the other side of the game came back after the rain delay, and Gore just didn't.
Did you see Gore went in the pen? He went into the pen and was throwing, and they were like, dude, we're not putting you back out when you go out there. And he got upset. It was great.
Yeah. I mean, so let's see. What did I actually, now that it is finished? Yeah, I came in 23rd in the 121, and my pitching combination, Mackenzie Gore and Harris, 4.4 fantasy points, 1.3 fantasy points. And then I had all of the nuts at hitter, partially because like the top scoring stack was actually stacking the Cubs against Freddie Peralta. So the Cubs had no ownership. I was all over them. I had Cody Bellinger in my single entry lineup, who you just talked about. So very tilting, but can't complain too much about profit. And we move on to the night slate, Eric. And let's start talking about some of the pitching options that we have for the slate here. And where we have to begin is by talking about Tanner Beebe. We only have 2 pitchers that are projected for a substantial amount of ownership today, right? We've got Tanner Beebe projected for 42% ownership. We've got Kyle Bradish projected for 32%, at least as of now in our most recent ownership projections. No other pitchers projected for north of 25% ownership. So starting with Tanner Beebe and his 42% ownership, he's got this matchup against the Kansas City Royals. Could we do away with some of these dumb teams like the Royals, the A's? Do we need this nonsense where these teams are so bad that they just get crushed every single day?
Wait for 2 months before you get all the call-ups. It's going to be so much worse than what you even imagined. Just wait until you don't have Sal Perez on that team anymore. Wait until they entertain offers from MJ Melendez at the deadline. There's a lot of weird stuff that could be coming down the pipeline from Kansas City. They already did away with Aroldis Chapman. So they're actively not caring about winning baseball games anymore. That's a proven fact. Wanted to sell high on it. It's hard not to like Tanner Beebe in that kind of a situation, but the huge difference is that calling Tanner Beebe on the same level or class as Pablo Lopez yesterday, I hope you got the note where we said still playing Pablo Lopez in a single entry made a lot of sense. Just having some pivots around him. The combination of him and Senga was my combination of pitching there. Best duo of pitching along with the worst hitting ever because the Yankees and Baltimore just decided to be pretty flat, even though you got the O'Hearn late bomb. But as I look at the top of the board, it makes sense that Tanner Beebe's up there. I just don't look at him like the same class of pitcher as that of Pablo Lopez. And so for me, it's a lot easier to, it's more palatable to be underneath this ownership than what it was yesterday on Pablo Lopez.
I was about even with the field on Pablo Lopez yesterday. It's funny though, because in return, I just played a lot of Senga and I felt like that worked out pretty well in the site. It was really not pitching yesterday though. It was so difficult to find good offenses because almost all of them sucked. The Braves went out and scored a bunch of runs, but it was hard to build lineups with them and the good pitchers yesterday. So it's not like most of the top lineups were Brave stacks. A lot of them were red stacks. And I had some of the reds, but clearly not enough in hindsight. But for today, yeah, I agree with you. I don't really think of Tanner Beebe as the exact type, same caliber of pitcher as Pablo Lopez for a couple of reasons. Number one, Lopez had a longer leash to work deeper into games this year. The other part of this too, BB isn't the same strikeout pitcher as Pablo Lopez. So if I go ahead and look at my exposures right now, I'm getting to some of Tanner Beebe, but once again, a little bit underweight to the field. So I'm at 30, right underneath 30% of him at the moment, which is a good amount. It's just not quite where the field is at with him.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty easy for me to get to Kansas City Pats today. I'm going to be getting to a lot of them going up against Tanner Beebe. Something that I generally end up having some kind of combination. Sometimes it's full 5-mans like today. Yesterday, it was a lot of 3-mans or 2-mans with Adele and Shohei Ohtani against Seth Lugo. Wish he was even a little bit more popular. That would have been fine. He pitched well, but Tanner Beebe, 290 xWOBA, 357 expected slugging. Still giving up some of that power, though. It's still showing up against lefties here. Not that there are good lefties in this lineup for Kansas City, but there's still enough there that I want to get there. 95, 96. I don't know what it is that I don't completely buy into, because he's got a 3.41 expected ERA, does BB. He's been really, really good. I just don't buy into him being like 42, 44% owned on a 6-game slate.
Yeah, I mean, I buy into him. I think he's a really solid young pitcher. I think he's going to be really good. He's got good numbers this year. To me, it's just, I think he's a little bit too popular. Right?
That's right. I literally just said that. Yeah. That's what I was saying.
Yeah. Well, you said you didn't know what it was. You didn't buy into him. And
no, I don't buy into him at 42 to 44%. Okay. I was literally talking about his ownership. I think he's good.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got him. Like I said, he's one of my most rostered pitchers. I have him in 30% of my lineups. That's still a little bit less than what the field has. So cash games, go ahead and play Tanner Beebe. No issues with that whatsoever. I'm just going to be a little bit underweight to him in large field tournaments. The other chalky pitcher that we should be talking about here is Kyle Bradish, who at $7,200 is the other chalky pitcher on this slate. He is projected for 32% ownership and playing against a wildly watered down version of the Yankees lineup. Yep. If I pull up this Yankees order right here, it is Volpe. Volpe has hit the ball better as of late, but he's going to be leading off. Then you've got Gleyber Torres, Anthony Rizzo, who's had a weirdly down year, Harrison Bader, Josh Donaldson, Billy McKinney, DJ LeMahieu, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, Jose Trevino. That is a fairly shitty lineup. I never would have thought at the start of the year this is the type of 9-man lineup we would see from the Yankees. It's a pretty easy matchup for Bradish. Once again, the question becomes, at his depressed price point, do we want to get to the ownership the field is getting to with him?
No, probably not. There's a lot of these more expensive pitchers, 9,600, 9,400 for Kirby and Urias, respectively. I think Blanco, there's a case to be made getting overweight underneath there. And even Severino, I mean, I kind of made fun of him before. He's going to be somebody I roster a little bit. Nathan Eovaldi, probably my favorite at current ownership. So there's going to be a lot of pieces that we can get to other places. But Kyle Bradish, I get it. I do get it. I'm just not completely sold that at 30, 35% of lineups that I'm going to be showing up, having him in it with the kind of K stuff that he has. I don't find it to be all that enticing. I'm not a huge proponent of a lot of these pitchers other than Tyler Wells out of the Baltimore starting rotation. Just feel like they're extremely overrated, whether it's Kyle Gibson. Oh, I guess he's properly rated as a bad, but 44.4% hard hit percentage, 438 expected slugging, 23% K rate. And you got to think that there's some extra Ks. Volpe leading off has nearly a 30% K rate, which is kind of useful. Josh Donaldson now moved up to 5th from 6th yesterday. He's nearly 30% as well. It's just that there aren't a ton of other strikeout guys in the lineup. DJ LeMahieu actually batting 7th, 24.2%, the next best to be targeting. Everybody else sub 22%. That's pretty wild.
So with that in mind, let's talk about some pivots, because these two pitchers are really popular and there isn't really a whole lot else to see at pitcher, at least in terms of ownership, right? We've got guys who are picking up a significant amount of ownership in terms of, it's not nothing, but the next most popular pitchers, it's Julio Urias just over 20%, George Kirby just over 20%, Luis Severino, who you just talked about being terrible, he's also just over 20%. Part of it is because he is $6,900. But if we're talking about the pay up options, who is your favorite guy to pay up for that isn't Tanner Beebe? And the options are kind of limited because we don't have that many pay up options, but Nathan Eovaldi, 10K. We've got George Kirby at 9,600, Julio Urias at 9,400, Tanner Beebe at 87. Those are your most expensive pitchers on DraftKings tonight. Of that group, all things being considered, price, ownership, expected range of outcomes. Who's your favorite payoff option?
Nathan Eovaldi. I really, really like getting to him. I also like getting to George Kirby. I mean, they're kind of 1-2, but Eovaldi at 15.4% over on DK. We're getting the 4.8% positive leverage in the top pitchers tool here at Stochastic. We're also getting a guy who has a 24.7% K rate, but the fastball has just been live again. And does he have revenge in his heart going into Boston, where they kind of booed him out of there at the tail end of his career? We shall see. But in the data, it just is grading out as his best year in a very, very long time. In terms of expected ERA, 2023, his best season thus far, 3.27. In terms of actual ERA, 2.64, his best. It's not just the 24.7% K rate, which is actually up from his career average of 22.2%. But he's limiting walks. He's continuing to do that at a decent clip. It's up a little bit from last year, but 6.3% is pretty nominal. And then as I look at this Boston lineup, yes, there are some lefties that you definitely need to be worried about. That's always going to be the case when you have Devers, Yoshida, Tristan Casas here. But no Duran. That's kind of useful because he's been just on an absolute tear. You get Hernandez, Hamilton, Wong at the bottom of this lineup, 28% K rate for Hamilton, 34% there for Connor Wong. I know he won't get a ton of strikeouts there in the first three, but outside of that, everybody's north of a 20% K rate. And he's got that kind of stuff where if the fastball's on, it'll be live against anybody. So I really like getting to Eovaldi. 10K, maybe it's just the fact that it's a complete overpay getting there relative to what his K rate is. I'm all right with it in tournaments.
So the one I got to the most in my initial run of our simulations was Julio Urias, but I might make some adjustments here because what are you expecting from him in terms of pitch count?
Yeah, I expect him to have the kitty gloves on to a certain extent.
That's how I'm kind of feeling too, because he made one minor league rehab start where he pitched 4 innings, and there was like a weird gap between starts here. So he goes the rehab start, he throws 4 innings, he comes back to pitch at the big leagues and only pitches 3 innings. And there was also like a week in between those starts. Now we're seeing a more regular kind of distance between starts where he pitched July 1st. He's going to be pitching again here on July 6th. But 4 innings in a rehab start, 3 innings in his first big league outing. Like, what do you think the ceiling is in terms of the amount of innings we could see from him?
I mean, the ceiling, if he can be super efficient like that San Francisco guy against Toronto the other night, you give him 75 pitches, you could go 5 2/3 to 6. He could still do that in terms of upside, but I would call that a 10 or 15% outcome when I have him slated for 75 pitches.
Yeah, it's really hard to expect a ceiling out of him, for cash. I would say for cash games, maybe he's like, but like you can't even say relative to the other options that he's safe. Like for cash games, I would just ride with the chalk here and play Tanner Beebe and Kyle Bradish, right?
100%.
Yeah, so I agree with you on the high end. I think just based on ownership, I gravitate most towards Eovaldi here. He's only 12.8% owned. That is way less than what these other pitchers are. And I don't really think there's that much opportunity cost for paying up at pitching today.
I'm a little bit surprised by Cutter Crawford's ownership too. If we're talking cash games, if you want to get an extra bat in there, I know it seems pretty loose, but 6,400 for Cutter Crawford isn't my least favorite thing to do.
So what is it you like about Cutter Crawford then? If it's not your least fit, and also, do you have a least favorite thing to do? Play Neil Orfield at pitcher? What's the worst outcome?
Probably that. Play myself at pitcher. I don't think I would be getting anybody out with my what did I hit in the gun? Cameron would remember. We threw at AAA. So my buddy Cameron pitched with Shane Bieber at UC Santa Barbara, and he could hit 83, 84 on the gun. I was hitting like 67, 68 on the gun. He's like, yeah, that probably wouldn't be working so well there at, sitting up there at 7,000 feet up in Reno at the PCL. But either way, Cutter Crawford, 35.4% hard hit percentage, nearly a 24% K rate. It's weird to see such a salary discrepancy between the two when I think Cutter Crawford, in terms of advanced numbers, might actually be surpassing Nathan Eovaldi. Now, he doesn't have as good of a fastball. There's not really any debating that, 94, 95 compared to 98. But I'm looking at a 3.34 expected ERA. Put that next to his 3.92 ERA. My main thing for him, too, is his pitch counts have been a little bit all over the place. He went 5 2/3, got himself into a jam, has given up 4 homers in his last 2, but has still found serviceable outings, has hit 5 Ks in 3 of his last 4, starting to get a little bit more work at times, had 94 pitches on the 25th of June against the White Sox. I don't know, 6,400, sub 10%. It's a scary, scary spot against Texas. There's no denying that. They're third in WRC plus against right-handed pitching, but that's a pitcher at sub 10% that I kind of circled coming into this.
And then I'm going to have to ask you about Luis Severino, because it seems to me, based on comments you made at the top of the show about Severino, and by the way, it could have just been tongue in cheek, making a joke about Neil Orfield and how much he sucks at softball. It might not have been a direct attack on Luis Severino himself, but Severino is projected for right around 20% ownership. He's only $6,900. He's a pitcher who used to have all of the talent in the world, but his recent results have been miserable this year. He still is throwing the ball hard, but he's not really generating swing and misses. It's crazy too, because you saw his first start of the season where he's throwing close to 100 miles per hour and thinking like, all right, Severino's back. But there is a part of it. So it's all these injuries have to catch up to him. He's torn his Achilles at one point. He's had Tommy John surgery. He's had shoulder issues. What do you think of him at 20% ownership? And do you think some of his poor results are just injuries starting to catch up to him?
Well, he's got the identical velocity that he had last year. I mean, he's 96.4 miles per hour on the four-seamer on the season, 96.3 last season. So that's not really the concern. So the next thing you have to look at is what's happening with the spin. Well, he's down about 10 RPMs. That's nothing. There's really no issue there. For me, it kind of comes down to what is happening with this K rate. Why is he not getting swings and misses? What has been the major issue? You know, sometimes you'll see a spiked walk rate. That's exactly what we see, 9.5% coming up from 4.5 in 2021, 7.4 in 2022. Now it's sitting there, but really it's just coming down to apparently the four-seamer is not playing live right now, and everybody is getting on top of it and murdering it. 6.94 expected ERA, 396 xWOBA, and with that four-seamer specifically, a 610 expected slugging against. There's actually negative regression on the horizon with a 556 actual slugging that he's had for the season. That's wild to think that you could see him hit up even worse on his primary pitch that he's throwing even more than 50% of the time. The ground ball rate is way down, 39.6% compared to 45.2% last season. There are just so many signs, and it's not really showing up in terms of velocity, in terms of spin. It just has to be something going on specifically with location, and he's just leaving things over the plate where maybe he didn't before. So I don't know if that's necessarily injury or if we're going to see him have some breakout performances coming up here, but I'm not optimistic based on pretty much everything I just listed.
Yeah, no, I think that totally makes sense. And is he somebody that you want to fade outright, just be underweight to the field? Because I still look at the price point on Severino and be like, boy, I could really see upsides on both sides of this, just when you consider that he's priced as if he's a pitcher who sucks.
Yeah, but he has been a pitcher who sucks this season. So it's a very limited sample. Again, 8 games started. It's not like he's started 12 or 14 even. We're looking at Luis Severino with the exact same velocity, exact same spin. Maybe he starts refining it. Maybe it's like a Shane Bieber thing where I do expect his K rate to start coming back to some kind of normality. Maybe not what it was before. He's had injuries as well, but he's 29 years old. It's not like Luis Severino's 36, 38, or Scherzer and Verlander age where, it's whatever. He could just turn it on here very shortly. I'm not going to be outright fading him here on this slate, but it is really hard for me to imagine if he's going to be pulling 18, 20% ownership on a small slate like this, then I'm not going to be coming in a little bit underweight.
I'm not going to let Luis Severino be what makes or breaks me on this slate. I'm most inclined to just kind of align myself with the field on him. And it's largely due to the price point. Because if you look at the other pitchers who are priced around him, let's see, pulling up the pricing. So you got Ronel Blanco at $6,800 with almost the exact same ownership. Then you got pitchers like Johan Oviedo. You'd mentioned Cutter Crawford. These are the pitchers he's priced around. And there's just a much better track record of Severino being good than these guys. And if you ask me the most likely scenario going forward, I think Severino's going to have better results than what he's shown so far, but isn't going to be the same guy from previous years. And it's hard for anybody to be as good as he was in previous years because he was legitimately one of the best pitchers in baseball when healthy for a while. So how I'm going to view Severino is just like align myself with the field on Severino, align myself with the field on Orioles stacks. Whatever happens in that scenario, I don't know exactly what to make of Severino. And it's just not going to be something I take a stand on because I'm kind of uncertain.
Yeah, it's not that I'm uncertain. It's just that I don't have the warm and fuzzies looking at anything in terms of advanced metrics with him. And then there's actually negative regression that's expected in terms of his expected slugging. I would feel a lot more optimistic if there was something noticeably wrong that I could point to with his pitch mix. But then I guess in the other corridor of that, it's like, well, why wouldn't he be able to just turn it on eventually? You start, not leaving it out over the plate where he's just getting completely murdered. You look at his heat map, he's leaving so much stuff, middle, high, fastballs, and there's not a lot of movement that he's ever really had on that pitch. So maybe he's able to just get some of that location back and turn it on here. It's just a very dangerous spot going up against Baltimore. We know they have some lefties that, maybe have been overperforming themselves. I'm looking at you, Aaron Hicks and Ryan O'Hearn, and I know Hicks got scratched, but Cedric Mullins still, I expect better numbers from him going forward. Gunnar Henderson has started to smash the ball with a nearly 50% hard hit percentage, and Adley Rutschman, one of the best catcher hitters in baseball. So it's still really, really freaky.
Yeah, and like I said, I should recant on something. I said I think the most likely scenario is that Severino pitches better than this going forward, but not quite. The most actual likely scenario is Severino gets hurt. Like that's actually what I think is most likely to happen. He ends up getting hurt again at some point. And then eventually he's just not going to be fixable, right? You break enough times, eventually you don't bounce back. So that's probably what's going to happen to him at some point in the near future. We'll keep an eye on that. I'm not going to have my slate made or broken by Luis Severino and where he's at right now in his career. I'm seeing some other people in chat bring up other players they're interested in. I saw Malukar had brought up Carlos Carrasco as a potential option. He said Carrasco is going to surprise. Outside of Cutter Crawford, are there any of these other really contrarian cheap pitchers, maybe Malukar's guy, Carlos Carrasco, that you're willing to get exposure to?
No. That's it.
Nobody.
I have nothing else to add. I have no Oviedo. I have no Ryan Nelson. I'm playing 40 lineups today. I'm going to be getting in a car as soon as this show is over. I'm going to be driving myself to Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm going to try to get there while the games are ongoing, go watch the end of them and go kick it with some buddies. Go get some Momofuku. It's going to be delicious. I can't wait. But I'm basically drawing a line in the sand at Cutter Crawford, and I'm not playing Oviedo, Nelson, Lyles, Carrasco, none of those four. Ronel Blanco, I guess, is the last guy to really talk about that I have any exposure to, and I'm not all that enthusiastic by what we've seen so far. At least it's a decent spot. I don't love the Seattle lineup. They've been underperforming all season long, but they do have pretty solid expected slugging in the heart of that lineup, from Julio Rodriguez up until Cal Raleigh, so 2 through 7. They are all north of a 410 expected slugging. So we're talking base level at Ty France all the way up to pretty elite stuff with Teoscar Hernandez, 487 expected slugging. So there's some guys who can do some damage against a guy with a 472 expected slugging. He's been limiting some of the hard hit, but in this ballpark with a lot of righties who like to pull the ball, you're running into the Crawford boxes, and it's going to be a high variance spot here in Houston.
By the way, we've got, if anybody ever questions how difficult Jordan's client is, he's been debating the merits of peanut M&Ms in the YouTube chat. Basically, the entirety of this show is just Jordan debating why he thinks that peanut M&Ms are overrated. Jordan, tell the people why you think red vines are actually the best candy and how you could pull guys like Ish Wainwright with them.
I think Raisinets are the best candy.
Oh, my God. Oh. What are you? Are you an 80-year-old grandmother?
You're the worst, Jordan Klein. You said raisins are Satan's tool to try to deceive us in life. Raisins are grapes gone bad. Raisins are pathetic. Their existence is despicable on cookies. The fact that people eat a cookie with raisins on it instead of chocolate when that's an option is something that I can't even tell you. I have no respect for you. I hate you. I hope you never, ever, ever show up at work again, because raisins are literally the worst.
I don't even have anything to add to that. I think Eric said is pretty on point there. But I want to know now, is Jordan's second favorite candy like black licorice?
Regular licorice. Red vine.
Regular licorice.
Red vines.
But are you biased because of the time that you got in with Ish Wainwright because of your licorice? And this Raisinets thing is not a bit, it's for real. Candy corn third then?
I hate candy corn.
All right.
Can't do that.
Sour straws are fire. Yeah, sour straws over red vines. I'm here for that.
But also, like, who considers raisins even candy?
Is Eric the raisin of DFS analysts? Maybe I am, Mike K. Not even going to go there.
Yeah. He makes you shit. That's what raisins do. They got a lot of fiber in them.
I wouldn't know. I don't eat them.
So I typically don't, but there are times that I've eaten them to help my digestive system. Not for pleasure. You got to get the extra fiber in you sometimes.
How about some plums? I feel it in my plums. A little bit
Plums
of that.
aren't bad. I'm not supposed to eat fruit that has skin on it, though, and plums have skin.
It's a very specific issue.
Well, it's for digest. Like, there's a whole list of things. If you got like Crohn's and colitis, you're not supposed. But for whatever reason, skin of fruits is supposed to be difficult to digest.
Interesting. Crunchy raisin bread. Get out. Anything with raisins is trash. It is garbage. It is so bad. And have some taste in life. From Jordan Klein too, Mr. I like the finer things in life. For him to go out and say raisinettes right from the get-go, fuck my life.
All right, so we have to, Jordan, what is a food item that you keep at your apartment that you are confident that we would make fun of you if we walked into your apartment and saw you at it?
I have a weird amount of popcorn here.
Oh, popcorn's delicious. There's no problem having that. Popcorn's normal.
But that's pretty much the only like weird thing I have. I don't know.
What's your favorite breakfast food? Like, what do you eat for breakfast?
I eat just like trail mix. It's like a bag. It's a bag of nuts with raisins.
You eat trail mix for breakfast?
You eat that's the first thing you say is trail mix for breakfast?
Right. I don't eat cereal.
Were you raised with squirrels?
I don't eat cereal.
By the way, somebody else brought this up in the chat too. Who the hell, their brand of choice is Red Vines instead of Twizzlers?
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Dude, Twizzlers are trash. Twizzlers are not good.
Oh my God.
Twizzlers are terrible.
I have to go. I should have. I knew I should have faked sick and just gone to Vegas early. I could have done that. I didn't do it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't Red Vines like off-brand Twizzlers?
No way. Twizzlers have been around way longer than Red Vines, right? There's no way. There's no way Red Vines are the OG. I would be shocked.
All right, let's find this out.
Bill Walton also lives out trail mix and pine straw.
So, like, to me, I see Red Vines, and I think that's what my grandma would buy at a discount when she goes to the dollar store. Like, that's the brand they have at the dollar store.
Mm-hmm. Red Vines taste like paper.
I
think Red Vines are fine. It's just that Twizzlers are way more, they're way better. And there's so many different flavors of Twizzlers. Like you can get the berry Twizzler or the berry ones. You have, what's the other one? There's not just like the OG one. There's what's the other one that I had? But I know that I've had berry ones before. They're fire. They're great. Yes.
I think we have to come to terms with the fact Jordan Klein, who produces this show, is actually a 70-year-old Jewish grandmother.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that, right? My grandma's cool when she's not complaining. She complains a lot, but so does Jordan.
So it's like the Red Queen in Game of Thrones when she takes off her amulet. Jordan Klein takes off his Blue Angels hat he's been wearing for like a year, and he just turns into her.
And then he walks out in the snow and just crumbles and dies. Well, you really look. By the way, you really look like Eric the actor there. If we pulled that as a screen cap,
do an ad read or something.
Ack. Anything else you want to talk about a pitcher?
No, I think raisins are terrible.
So really quick, let's touch on the FanDuel pitching, which I don't think is all that different from the DraftKings pitching. I think a lot of the analysis we gave for DK is going to apply to FanDuel because the popular pitchers on DraftKings are generally popular on FanDuel as well. Probably the biggest difference, Kyle Bradish is $8,500 on FanDuel as compared to DK, so he's only 15% owned. Tanner Beebe is 31% owned over on FanDuel. So Eric, if you're looking at the FanDuel slate, is Eovaldi still your favorite pivot at the high end off of the other pitchers, or is there somebody else you'd look at for any other reason over on FanDuel?
Yeah, so he's pulling 8% ownership compared to Kirby in double digits, BB a third of lineups, Julio Urias 15%, which is egregious to me on FanDuel, where you're looking for 6 innings. Like, what are we even doing here? And then Kyle Bradish sitting there at 12%. I think that's about correct. I mean, Nathan Eovaldi, Again, no Duran. It actually matters that he's not in that lineup. I feel a little bit better getting the Hamilton-Wong combination at the tail end of it, get two at-bats against them, possibly rack up a freebie between the combination of them. And, you run into 4 or 5 more along the way to 6 innings of work. It's a really good spot. I will say, I think Cutter Crawford pulling 1.7% ownership next to Severino for 400 more, Lyles, Carrasco, Blanco down there at 6,300 is pretty interesting to me too. I would probably put it somewhere in the range of like Eovaldi. I do like the George Kirby play sitting there for 300 more. You could see a lot of ways where people don't even necessarily get there with the tools. So maybe Eovaldi, Kirby, Crawford, Blanco.
And by the way, because somebody in chat is saying that Blanco isn't on FanDuel. He is on FanDuel. He's $6,300. Just type his name in. Jack Billions. Go to FanDuel, type in Ronel Blanco. Or just type in his last name. BLAN. He pops up. He's $6,300. He's in there. I agree with you, by the way. I like him at $6,300 on FanDuel. Very cheap price point. Very cheap.
Yep.
I'm going to check Discord to see if we've gotten any questions in there. If you guys have questions for us in Discord, which we don't right now. Just Hef Love was following up and said, same deal with him on the early slate. He had Mackenzie Gore as one of his pitchers and then had a Detroit stack. So he ended up cashing, but same as me, ends up getting screwed by the Mackenzie Gore situation. Let's go ahead and build some lineups in the MLB lineup generator, which if you guys haven't signed up for this yet, I love talking about this tool because it is great for starting DFS players or people are just new to MLB DFS and are looking for a simple way to build out some MLB lineups because this tool is going to do it for you. That's the easiest way for it is somebody just does it for you. The only thing you're going to have to put in is which site you play on, DraftKings or FanDuel. You build what sort of stack types you want. You also put in whether you want to build a contrarian, a chalky, or a balanced lineup. And then from there, you're going to get up to 20 lineups built for you. You can choose to save some of them, discard some. If you want to discard some lineups, you could build additional ones to get some ones you like. And there's a couple different things you can do that. You could upload those lineups directly to FanDuel or DraftKings, or what a lot of people have been doing with success as of late is they've been hand building lineups built around some of the players they're getting the most exposure to, which is what we're going to try to help you guys out with here. We're going to use our lineup generator to find some of the players that project the best for us when we're building lineups. And I think that should help you guys find some players that you should be targeting. But let's start with DraftKings, Jordan, and we'll build contrarian lineups since it is a smaller slate. Also, as far as the pricing of this tool, when you sign up using the link below, you could get access for less than $5. So really cheap to get your foot in the door here. Go all stack types, Jordan. And then, like I said, let's go contrarian with it being a smaller slate. Let's see what pops up. I'm seeing a lot of Guardians right now.
Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Still haven't seen it. Still really need to see it.
I've kind of soured a little bit on the Marvel experience. I've just seen so many of them. They feel very repeated. There's individual ones that are really good. I'm really looking forward to seeing the new animated Spider-Man movie. I know it's like a little bit removed from the actual Marvel universe. Any fatigue on the superhero movies for you though, like me?
I get it, but I mean, the same stories have been reiterated for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they work the same time from the Iliad and the Odyssey to Shakespeare to now. It's the same ideas. It's the same premises. There's a reason it works every time.
You've seen Shakespeare movies lately?
No, but I'm saying the whole idea of first act, second act, third act, how you build it up. And yes, Marvel has now canonized the idea of, hey, here's the comedy bits. We're going to do this for an hour, hour and a half. And then we're going to hit our really like soft note beat where it's like, hey, this is your dad, or hey, we've got Spider-Man, he's coming back, and hey, you got like, there's all that different.
So there's really unique and creative ways you could do some of these movies. Like the Spider-Man movies, the animated ones are so much different from anything that exists. Here's something else too that you should look into. Have you ever heard of Invincible?
Yeah, I have.
Fucking rules. It is on Amazon Prime. I think there's a season 2 coming out soon. My brother's read all the comics. I've read some of them, but I also just kind of want to watch it animated. It is amazing. Super, because it's not what you typically see, right? It's not just like good guy gets powers, good guy faces adversity, good guy overcomes adversity and wins. Like there's other elements to it. It's really good. So here,
did you see the original Invincible?
What's the original Invincible?
With Bruce Willis back in 2000?
This is different.
Oh, it's different than that. Well,
Yeah,
you said Invincible, but I didn't know if they were like correlated, because Invincible, from what I remember of that movie, it's a guy who gets superpowers as well.
What was that called Invincible?
It was with Bruce
Okay.
Willis, because it
Yeah,
was
this
like
is
after
something-
Sixth Sense, and he was like
Yeah.
big then.
This is something different. This is an animated.
Interesting.
By the way, somebody in chat is saying it's Unbreakable that you're talking about.
Unbreakable is what I'm thinking of. There
Okay.
we are. Okay, thank you.
I'm telling you guys, if you watch Invincible on Amazon Prime, you are not going to regret it. So, like, different looking superhero stuff that I get behind: the Spider-Man animated stuff, Invincible, and the Deadpool movies.
Invincible, Unbreakable. I can see where I got that from. I don't know. Probably
Anyway,
didn't need to
the
sing.
exposures here. A ton of Guardians. By the way, Guardians are also the team I have the most exposure to as a stack. Our
Yes.
top 4 roster hitters: Jose Ramirez, Ahmed Rosario, Steven Kwan, Will Brennan. In terms of pitchers, we're getting to a good amount of Julio Urias and Ronel Blanco. I'm going to be underweight to that Urias exposure. I don't mind Blanco as an SP2. Anything else that stands out to you? It seems like every single hitter that's in the Guardians lineup is one of our most rostered players.
Stop looking at me, Quan. That's it.
No comment on the lineups?
None. I mean, as I'm looking at it, it all makes sense. I mean, the Urias thing on DK, I don't mind as much. Again, when we jump over to FanDuel, I would want 0%. I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay. I don't have an issue with that. And keep scrolling down, Jordan. I'm curious to see what pitcher we got the third most exposure to.
Gabriel Moreno, our highest owned catcher. Him and Bo Naylor right next to each other. That's pretty wild.
Overweight to the field on Uvalde a little bit here. By the way, it looks like we hardly got to any of Tanner Beebe. Pretty aggressive. We did build
kind of fun
lineups.
Again, Tanner Beebe is not Pablo Lopez. He's not going to put up 50 today. I'm just throwing it out there on DraftKings.com. I don't want to throw out theoreticals. Tanner Beebe is not going for 50.
Not. Absolutely not.
Not.
I tend to agree with you.
The suit is not black.
I tend to agree with you. I don't think he's going for 50 either. I'm looking through my pitcher exposures. So by the way, the pitcher that I'm currently getting the overall most exposure to, Eric, is actually Cutter Crawford.
Buddy, I'm telling you, he is the most underappreciated play on this slate.
Now, with that said, I'm really spread out at pitcher. Like, there's no one pitcher I'm getting a massive, like, I'm really spread out. I've got, Tanner Beebe, a little bit underweight there. There's like a lot of pitchers I'm getting to like 25, 30-ish% of. So a lot of guys around there. And then the chalkier pitchers, I am coming in underweight to. So underweight to Kyle Bradish as well, a little bit underweight to George Kirby. But yeah, mixing and matching some of these cheaper options. Curious to see what we end up getting to on FanDuel now. We went through these DK lineups. So Jordan, let's build out some FanDuel ones to help out the FanDuel folks. I have a feeling this is also going to be a lot of Guardians that show up, but build contrarian lineups, and we'll see if maybe that isn't the case. Something else that I'm going to note here is that if we're building contrarian lineups, getting underweight to the field on Tanner Beebe, it kind of doesn't really matter what the rest of the lineup is. It's going to be somewhat contrarian, no matter what the offenses are, if it just doesn't have Tanner Beebe.
Correct.
Yep, same deal. Ramirez, Jimenez, Steven Kwan, Ahmed Rosario. We do have Corbin Carroll up there, Mookie Betts up there. But then Josh Naylor, Josh Bell, Will Brennan. So it looks like we're getting the most exposure to the Guardians over on FanDuel. Second most exposure is coming in to the Diamondbacks as a stack.
Interesting. Diamondbacks were our second highest owned, it looked like, on DK as well. I am looking for runs in that game. I will say both sides of it. Mets, Arizona, those are two of my 3 highest owned stacks.
And then just because I do see somebody in the chat is bringing up the weather scenario, there are some weather concerns in that Cleveland game. It's nothing that's going to keep me from playing it, right? Like, I think that this game could potentially have a late start to it. Hopefully it isn't something stupid like they do at the Washington game where they play an inning, they go into a rain delay, and the starting pitchers come out. But I don't think this is anything that's worth us getting off the game or fading it entirely. Like yesterday, we talked about the weather concerns in the Chicago White Sox game. I sent out a tweet and said, I'm not getting any exposure to this in my player pool. Take all of the players out. I don't view this as being that bad of a scenario.
I am with you. Yesterday, I mean, it was like an hour and a half, 2 hours before first pitch. I was basically like, I have 0% of this entire game. I'm glad that worked out for everybody. It's one of those things where there are times that as a golfer, pack your rain gear. And when you do stuff like that, where it's like, oh, I don't think we're even playing golf today. Like, that's kind of my gauge, is like, would I be playing golf in it? No. All right, sounds great. They're probably not going to be playing baseball, a game where you're running around.
And something else too to add about this, just because I have the weather report pulled up in front of me, is you have at first pitch, there is a 60% chance of rain. Then you're seeing the chance of rain just go down throughout the night, to the point where if this game, if they're willing to just wait out the early rain, there's definitely an opportunity to play. So unless something changes in the next few minutes or so, or leading up to first pitch, I'm not going to be taking this game out of my player pool or anything like that. And we actually have, let's see, what do we have? Yeah, 20 minutes till the game starts. One of the first one that starts on the slate. So we could just talk about this right here, but anything at all that is going to have you getting off of this in any kind of way, or you're just okay with the little bit amount of risk that exists?
Doesn't look that terrible to me. Yesterday, it was automatic with the White Sox game, where I did not think they were playing. This one, I'm pretty sure they're playing.
Yeah, that's how I feel as well. I'm not going to tell anybody there's zero risk. There's not enough risk for me want to get off the game, though.
There's almost always risk, though, in any kind of spot where there's any kind of cells hanging around. It's just, there's times where it's worth the squeeze. There's times that it's not, when based on severity. It just doesn't look that bad.
And now, Jordan, if you wouldn't mind, let's scroll down a little bit and let's see what pitchers we got to here. So Kyle Bradish was our most really spread out a pitcher here on FanDuel. Bradish, Eovaldi, Kirby, just a lot of guys that were getting to around like 20% of lineups. Ronel Blanco, 15%. Tanner
Beebe getting squeezed? 15%. Oh, where's he at? So we're way undercutting the field. 15% there in the 20. That's 3 of 20. I like that. I like that on FanDuel, where you have one pitcher who's just consolidated. He stands out. The matchup, the price, everything makes sense there. But that's why you want to get to the Kirby, the Eovaldi side of it, I think, a little bit more.
We have a super chat here from Chris Williams. And by the way, also one final thing before we move on, because nothing else I think to add about the MLB lineup generator. Just want to remind you guys that if you want to sign up for the first time, use that link below. You're going to get access for less than $5. And also wanted to shout out David Colasanto, who messaged us on Twitter. He said that he almost had a 4-figure payout twice in 1 week. He'll settle for second place and a $200 ROI. Thanks again for the advice. So shout out to David. And also, thank you for rocking the Stochastic Avatar when you're playing in tournaments. If you guys want to ride with our avatar, play it on DraftKings and FanDuel and use our logo. If you finish at the top of a tournament, at Stochastic HOF, and then you get a 1 free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. Super chat from our guy, Chris Williams, your Apple guy again. Great show, like always. Playing the 2-game night slate on DK. Pitching is weak, but you have to have 2. Can you rank those 4 pitchers? Yeah, let's go ahead and look at the night slate. All right,
wild to say. Slate, I mean, it's Julio Urias by a mile, right?
Yeah, it is dog shit. You've got Urias, Oviedo, Carlos Carrasco, and Ryan Nelson. It sucks.
I mean, I'm probably taking both pitchers from the Dodger game, which is absurd.
Yeah. I mean, also, if you look at, because I'm looking at our projected ownership now, because I haven't looked all that much at the 2-game night slate. Urias projected for 73% ownership. And then all the other guys right around 40. 47% for Oviedo, 37% for Carrasco, 43% for Nelson. So I'm going to say Urias just by far the best option on that slate. And then I think Oviedo is the second best option. And there's no real massive discrepancy in ownership. So let's go Urias 1, Oviedo 2. And I'll say Carrasco 3, Nelson 4.
I'm trying to see if there's a long reliever that I can throw out there for him. The Mets don't have one that I'm really that interested in. Bullpen, let's see. Jose Ruiz went 24 on Tuesday the 4th. I do a lot of this for my betting stuff. Miguel Castro, shoot. He ended up pitching 32 on Tuesday as well. Otherwise, that would have been your long reliever. So there's nothing from that game. Now, Pittsburgh's probably got something in the tank. Okay. Yeri De Los Santos. There you go. He pitched 24 pitches on Monday, but that's 3 removed. He's been kind of a long reliever, a guy who eats innings in games that get a little bit south side or that go a little bit south. And I got to imagine he's going to be the flat 4K. So if you want to get really, really weird, Yeri De Los Santos.
All right. So there you have it. De Los Santos from Eric, if you want to get really weird. If you're only playing one lineup, though, Chris,
Don't
probably
do that.
not going to go that path, right?
Yeah, probably not. But I'm saying that there are 4 pitchers, and the chances that one of them puts up a score is still lower than just about any other 4-game slate that you're going to play the entire rest of the year. So like if I were going to do it on a slate, I feel like that would be the one. Although I rarely, if ever, play 2 or, single game MLB.
And by the way, we did just officially get word that the Royals Guardians game is going to start in a rain delay, which is not massively surprising, but also doesn't really change anything about how I view that spot. Like I was just saying before, there is rain expected to be at the start of the game, and not going to say there's no risk involved, but I almost feel better that there's a rain delay so we don't run into any of that weirdness with the Washington Nationals game where they play 1 inning.
SMP 1993. They also let Oviedo eat innings even when things aren't going well, plus their bullpen's depleted. Did you watch yesterday? Because they had 3 relievers who showed up in the game, and each one of them threw fewer than 12 pitches. They had Roansy Contreras throw 35 in that game. It was really wild stuff. You had 3 relievers. They didn't use either David Bednar, who is the main guy, that is their stud, and then Colin Holderman would be their other main dude. They didn't utilize either of them yesterday. And in a competitive game, they're both the guys who are going to be used out there. So no, their bullpen is not depleted.
All right. So let's go ahead and talk about some stacks here, Eric. And looking through my overall highest projected lineups and the team I'm getting the most exposure to, it is by far the Cleveland Guardians popping up as the team that I get the most exposure to. I have them in about a third of my lineups today. All of my most rostered hitters, by and large part, are the Guardians. Not as excessive as what we're seeing the lineup generate. Like I don't have, which is going to happen when the lineup generator just your top 20 lineups as compared to something like this where I have 150 lineups that I've built out. But I've got the Guardians about a third of my lineup. So I'm looking at my most rostered hitters. I've got Jose Ramirez is my number 1 most rostered hitter. My next most rostered hitter is Steven Kwan, then Andres Jimenez. So lots of players I'm getting exposure to here from the Cleveland Guardians. Are they your most exposed stack, or is it somebody else?
Nope, definitely Guardians. You use the Sims tool. I use the Sims tool. We all use the Sims tool, and Cleveland is definitely the team du jour, and it makes complete sense. Jordan Lyles is terrible. Amongst all of the terrible pitchers on this slate, this guy is the one that I think you want to start, target, highlight every time that he's out there from now until forever. It's just not a very good pitcher. He ended up sitting out with an illness. I think his last start missed a rotation, which I don't think Kansas City was crying their eyes out over. But over the course of this season, nearly a 7 ERA, giving up power like crazy. Did get his first win last time out against Tampa. Yay! Did you see that they hadn't won a start that he appeared in 16 consecutive games this season until that last one?
That seems bad.
Seems really bad. Didn't win a game that he appeared. Not just like him getting the loss, but games where he left without having the decision there, they still lost. So Jordan Lyles, congratulations on your W. Don't think it's happening this time around.
He's in the winner's circle. He had the 1 there. So let's go ahead and look at some other stacks, because I want to mention also, I've got my lineups here pretty much built out in front of me. The team I'm getting the second most exposure to. It's funny. It's one that we didn't get a whole lot of in the MLB lineup generator for DraftKings, but we did for FanDuel. And that is the Arizona Diamondbacks going up against Carlos Carrasco and the Mets. Carrasco's just dog shit at this point in his career. And you almost feel bad because he's had, so many health issues, not just based on his arm, but, it's just
Cancer.
other things too that he's had. Yeah. So it's at a certain point too, where you have all these things have added up with Carrasco, right? Shoulder injuries, elbow injuries. He battled cancer at one point, and now he's 36 years old. His fastball velocity is way down. Last year was 93.3 miles per hour. This year's 92.7. His average fastball velocity has actually gone down in every single subsequent season since 2014. I just don't think he has anything left. 5.94 ERA, 6.51 expected ERA. Carlos Carrasco, I do not think that he is a viable big league pitcher at all anymore, and I really like stacking against him. How do you feel about the Diamondbacks going up against Carrasco?
Yeah. So, I mean, Cleveland's number 1 in terms of stacks. Number 2 for me is Arizona. Number 3 is the Mets. I'm pretty obsessed with that game. You get a lot of salary savers everywhere throughout it. You get some catching options in Moreno and Alvarez that I kind of love both of them on this slate today. And then the outfield is just stripe with options. Expensive and Corbin Carroll, 6,200, Lourdes Gurriel as well. And then some cheapies. You can go to Fletcher and Thomas on the Arizona side. And then with the Mets, nobody is all that cost prohibitive. You get 5,400. A lot of good first base options. You get Daniel Vogelbach if you want to go on the cheap end at 2,400. I'm just kind of obsessed with that game. I'm rotating that through a lot of lineups.
Are there any super contrarian stacks that you're getting to?
There's one, and I want to get your opinion on this, but I do think Pittsburgh is pretty live against Urias still. I won't say that they've had the Dodgers numbers and used that, or had their number and used that as like a falling off point. But I do think the top of this Pittsburgh lineup, and then combined with, I don't think Urias has really been the same kind of pitcher this entire season that he's been in years past. If you go through some of the numbers, the K rate sitting right around, where did it go? 22.5%, a 464 expected slugging, a lot of that to righties. You get some really serviceable righties. Brian Reynolds from both sides of the plate, Andrew McCutchen back in that lineup. Connor Joe probably going to be making this lineup when it comes out. I don't know. I feel as though Pittsburgh's the one team that's going really, really underlooked on this slate.
I am not really getting to Pittsburgh. I'm not really playing a ton of Urias either. Here is the issue, though, that I have with Pittsburgh, is if you and I both think Urias is going to be somewhat limited today, right? That's kind of
bullpen right away.
Both have.
Yeah.
I just don't like to target offenses going up against a bullpen game for multiple reasons. Number one, there's going to be a lot of pitching changes where you got righties and lefties coming in. That often leads to pinch hitting. And then also, it's just hard to find success against some of these middle relief setup type pitchers who are just more effective in a 1 inning outing than most starters are going to be over the course of 4, 5, 6 innings. So that to me is really the biggest issue I have with
a little bit of devil's advocate to that. So just like what he was saying about the Pittsburgh pen being depleted, check out the Dodgers usage of the pen the last couple of days. So you get Brusdar Graterol, who ends up getting hurt. He's been out the last 2 games now. He's their 102 mile per hour flamethrower. Then you have Daniel Hudson, who ended up having to get he ended up getting the save because Evan Phillips had pitched 3 days in a row. Now, Evan Phillips, who's their best bullpen arm, should be available for this one. But Hudson, coming off of 29 pitches, I don't expect him to appear. You had Caleb Ferguson, their other stud, 25 pitches. He pitched 3 days in a row. A lefty will not be available out of this pen. Period. End of story. Brian Hudson did get called up from AAA, but I very highly doubt that he ends up appearing in this game. It's all going to be righties out of the pen. And so, yeah, you might get flipped over and get Jack Sawinski pitch hitting. If he's not in this lineup initially, you might get some of that, but I don't think they can really play the kind of games that the Dodgers normally do because Ferguson should be unavailable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that they have a totally 100% bullpen, but even with that said, I still think that generally the 1-2 innings you're going to get out of some of these middle relievers are going to be more effective than what you're going to get out of the majority of the starting pitchers on the slate.
Not disagreeing with that.
So for me, Pittsburgh, not really a team that I'm totally getting to. As for me, let's see, what is a contrarian stack I'm getting to? Let me look at our most up-to-date stack odds with a few minutes to go until lock. And if you guys haven't done it yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Boy, it's tough from a couple of reasons. Number one, there aren't that many teams that are projected for low ownership. These are the teams that are projected for 5% ownership. The Royals against Tanner Beebe. Like, I don't think they're the worst leverage stack in the world, but 5% for the Royals is still kind of a decent amount. 5% for the Yankees. This lineup is terrible. 5% for Pittsburgh against Urias. 5% for Houston going up against George Kirby. I guess of all of those, I'm probably most inclined to stack the Yankees just because Kyle Bradish is very popular. And then the other part too is it's still Yankee Stadium where home runs could happen.
Correct.
I don't feel great about any of these contrarian options.
No, nor should you. I think Houston, anytime you get Kyle Tucker low owned, I'm going to click on him, even against George Kirby. George Kirby's another guy that I don't think the advanced numbers are all that good over the course of this season. He's your boy, though, from Elon, so I won't besmirch the good name of Elon University. But overall, it's a pitcher that's had some really nice performances from time to time, but on the aggregate, a 259 expected batting average and just a 21.4% K rate, that's still going to be gettable.
All right, so let's go ahead. And by the way, are there any other pitchers that you like for the slate?
And also, as I just plugged it in, I mean, no Altuve in that lineup is definitely a downgrade. That's another good thing there for George Kirby. Some push and pull, I think, for any of the contrarian ones, but Pittsburgh, the one that showed up the most for me.
All right, so now let's go and do our dong picks of the day before we head into lock here. Eric, you know the deal. One guy to hit a home run, can't be a Coors Field player, but there are no games at Coors Field. Who's hitting a homer today?
Ryan O'Hearn.
All right. Let's look at my lineups. Who would I like? I know the player I like to homer the most is Jose Ramirez, but he's fairly popular. How about, all right, just because he also, when I was doing my odd shopper video earlier today, he popped up also. Ahmed Rosario to homer. Is it likely to happen? Absolutely not, but I'm overweight to him. He's got shortstop eligibility. I'm playing a bunch of Guardian stacks. Ahmed Rosario, he's someone I'm overweight to, but I would like to homer. Therefore, I'm going to back him here. And he was also like 11 to 1 to homer earlier in the day. And that, I think, presented some value. It's been bet differently since then. Eric, anything else you want to add to the people before we sign off here?
No, I'd be just fine with that home run. So good shout out.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, if you haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to listen to our shows in podcast form, daily fantasy podcasts, we've got those as well. Stochastic Daily Fantasy. That's the podcast handle. Go check that out. Leave us a 5-star review if you wouldn't mind it. Good luck with all your lineups today, guys, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.